Okay, the time is 5 o'clock. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. We'll begin with the pledge of allegiance. Please stand with me for that. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Man, so impressed with the cadence every time. I mean, nobody's ever off. It just goes smooth. Okay, so this special meeting is a workshop to discuss the potential sale of the Port of Columbia or the Port of Columbia Walla Walla rail line. And there will not be any public comment during this meeting. This is going to be a business meeting between the commissioners so that we can discuss this report and talk about where the next steps are from here. That said, it's nice to have everybody here. I assume you commissioners have had ample time to pour through these documents and have everything memorized and. Oh, we're supposed to memorize it? You didn't get that, email? Goodness. I got the front page. Okay. Anyway, so without further ado, let's get into discussion of this rail report. Initial thoughts, gentlemen.
First off, I want to thank everybody, Jenny, especially Kevin, for the excellent job of putting the report together. It's very thorough. I believe it leads us to one conclusion, that we don't sell the road. So that's my initial thoughts.
Okay.
Got lots more. I even typed up notes for myself.
Yeah, I mean, this endeavor is not, for me, has not been pushing to sell the railroad. The whole time was, okay, let's take a look at, see what that would entail. Because I have a lot of ignorance. I don't have the history or I'm not expertise in that. So the information, it was all about information gathering for me so I can get in my head and make critical thinking decisions on fact-based information. And so this was awesome. It was actually more than I anticipated as far as information. And there was a lot of stuff in there. I was like, oh man, I did not know that. I did not know that. And I kept saying, okay, that makes sense. And it started putting some pieces of the puzzle together for me of what's going on. So, and that's kind of where I was at with it. So I too appreciate the efforts that was put into it. It gave me some clarity because there was so much information. There's no way a year ago, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, whenever we started this endeavor of taking a look at it, was able to make a decision one way or the other.
Right.
So that's where I sit. I have some concerns with selling the railroad with the information gathered. And it's not one, it is a combination of things that collaborates into a decision-making process that is where I'm at.
Have had a good amount of time to go through this, and I do appreciate the efforts that went into it. There's a lot of information here. And it's been 3.5 years that we've been discussing this possibility and researching and learning. And I know in that process, I have learned an incredible amount about how railroads operate and what the port's role is in that and where things are. I've also had time to research into, what the benefits and disadvantages of private ownership would be versus public ownership. And really, I guess what this decision, even considering of this decision, comes down to is what is going to be the best benefit for the community, what is going to potentially keep this rail viable and alive and productive and operating. That's my priority with this is to keep that economic development asset that is part of this community, to keep it going and keep it operating. So whether we decide to sell or not to sell, I guess the important thing is that we make a decision based off of what is going to be the economic development for this community, because that's what our job is here as commissioners is to look at that angle of the things and, you know, put other things aside and what's really going to be the best for the community in the long term. That said, that's kind of where I'm at on it. I still personally strongly leaning towards the private ownership of the railroad. If we come to a legal pathway to do it for a fair dollar amount, that is good for the purchaser and works for the board as well and falls within the legal parameters of what we can do. Because I do still believe that private ownership is the best way to keep the viability of that railroad operating, because frankly, the port just hasn't really been able to do a lot with it over the years, and Paul has put an incredible amount into it. I don't think we've given Paul enough credit for all the work and the time and the money and the dedication that he has to the economic development of that asset and what it does bring to this community, because he's done an incredible amount. And I think that we tend to sometimes take that for granted and not really take that into consideration. And I think we need to, not only in saying thank you for what you do and for what you bring to the community, but also recognizing the monetary investment and the sweat equity and the time and the materials and the work that he has put into this railroad over the years. He's done with this railroad what nobody else was willing to do, you know, and he's doing it to build and bring viable business and rail transportation to our county. And he's really done a lot more than we've been able to do with it. So for the viability of the longevity of the line, I think it would be better in the private hands of somebody like Paul that is really going to do the work and put the time in and the effort in to make it better and continue to improve on it. So,
And I'm not trying to take away from Paul at all. But he's our operator. He's our leasing, and he's ridiculously low because we expected him to put in, and we, as the governing body, have sought after and got millions of dollars in grants for that operation. Paul's put in some money, but we put in as taxpayers a lot of money over the years. It's in the report. I don't know the exact figures, but I also believe that personally, I think our liability for selling this puts us in a huge fine if we go to sell this. And we can't just sell it to Paul. We would have to go out to open public bid, so we don't even know if Paul would be the owner of this. It's not.
that's not entirely true. We could do a negotiated sale. That's one of the avenues that we have a sale.
I don't think that's a viable option with the offers that have been given by the operator. But I mean, would you sell your house for 10% of what its value is? That is good business decision.
We're not talking about selling a private residence. We're talking about selling
a public asset.
We're talking about selling a public asset that we received for $1. And
Yeah, but we were given ownership of it to be a steward of that, not just give that.
we were given it because nobody else wanted it.
Okay, but that's like saying somebody gave you a house that it has no value in the minute because it gave it to you. That's not true. It has huge value. The appraised value was $13 million.
No, I don't necessarily agree with you.
I don't care whether you agree, that's appraised value. You can disagree with a professional.
I'm gonna interject here real quick. One, we have to keep some decor. When we say, I don't care that this is values, and I'm not gonna do it to you. I'm not gonna do it to you, and I don't want you to do it to him. The conversation, right? You can have. And a couple other things, a couple of meetings, some of the things that frustrate me is in the manner in which current operator has been spoken about in meetings, because they are a partner in this. And I want to make sure that I want to continue the partnership, because what's our goal? I want to piggyback on what you said. The goal was to
Maintain operation of the railroad. and
Maintain
continue-
operation of the
continue That asset and operate.
That's, that should be our number one goal
I don't disagree.
of that. And we can agree to that. So we can agree, all three of us agree, that is where it really sits. Now, the direction of how that gets done is where we're sitting, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And so I want to, I don't want to burn bridges of the
No.
current operator
No need.
and be bad mouthing whatever reasons for that. It's like, no, I mean, absolutely, it's put in a bunch of time and energy
Yeah.
into making it viable. I don't think there's a long list out there, people stand behind and want to operate it, on financially or, all of those things that go with it. So I want to make sure we foster that because regardless of the direction we go, we need an operator.
Yeah.
All right? Or you sell, right?
Right,
Either way, you need an operator
right.
and you need a relationship. And so that's build that relationship and say, all right, how do we get to the spot where it is a viable operation where both operator and port and community and stakeholders have buy-in with it? Cause I looked at the report and I saw a bunch of money spent on here that I did not know. Okay, I did not know that there was that much from the port and from all avenue stakeholders with that. And I was like, oh, okay, there has been. I was under the impression that there wasn't really a lot done with it. Could there be more done? Absolutely. And whether or not has it been a focus, right? I've only been sitting in this chair for almost 4 years. Okay, so is there an avenue for focus and say, oh, let's get to the spot where we need to be? With the viability of it, right?
Right.
And that's fostering that relationship as well. So one, decorum with each other, gotta make sure, hey, there's no stupid ideas, there's no, I don't care, shut up, all those things. And we wanna make sure we are not doing that because that is gonna detract from the mission. Also with, stakeholders, right? And the operator, because we're all, how we figure that out. And that's kind of, and I don't mean related, but that would be my wish.
Yeah.
To be able to get to a better place, because at the end of this, and yeah, it's taken a long time, right? And I was happy that, okay, we finally have a spot where we can make a decision rather than this drama limbo that has been happening over the last couple of years. I want to say, all right, we're gonna go this direction because this is the best for our community, okay? Do I want what's best for a stakeholder or an owner? Absolutely. Do I agree with you that I agree that private sector probably had more invested as far as sweat equity, those type of things, because if they fail, it's their livelihood. So I get that, I understand that. If the government fails, they just ask for more money, type deal.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So I understand that part and my heart says I want to look for those little guys for, economic development and bringing those people in. But on the other hand, I'm not there with this particular, at this moment, to be able to move that direction because there are so many things that do not fit right into the puzzle. If there was definitely, you talk about legal concerns, you talk about financial concerns, talk about longevity. I'm only sitting in this chair, we're only sitting in this chair for a couple of years. And this decision is for ever, a long time, and there's lots of unknowns. And that's what scares me the most is the unknowns, right?
Right.
If I can see it, I can say, okay, I can predict it. It's when I can't predict what it is and you think it's gonna go a certain direction. That's the stuff is like, that makes me uncomfortable, in my risk management mind. Okay, so that makes sense.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of where I'm sitting with it. Financially, it's not close. As far as being able to, pull a trigger on it, I think that's even close to the value. You may disagree that it's 13 or whatever it may be, but it's not even close, to where I can look in the mirror and walk around the community and say, hey, I think this is a good decision. Okay, I'm not there. Legally wise, that's where I get some of the unknowns.
Right.
That kind of spooks me
Yeah.
for, the port itself.
Yeah.
The liabilities.
Yeah.
The city and being able to use it as right of ways and all of those things with the sewer and fiber and all this other stuff that the community is invested in and needs. Does an outside entity, and I really enjoy Paul. And I hope that that's the direction we're going for the future. I want him to be the operator. for it, okay? That's what I would like to see because I think he is invested in the community and those type of things to try to get more. Definitely needs some support from us, continued support, maybe even more support. As far as the lease, I'm happy that it's affordable. I mean, we do that for all kinds of people that make it affordable so that it's not actually operational. Okay, if we were to jack this lease up in a manner that regardless who the operator was. There's not a lot of trains going by my house to make it viable for
Right.
that. And then at what point does they say, no, I'm out? And then we just have a bunch of weeds growing up in it or have to pay someone to manage something that's not being used.
Store cars.
Yeah, okay, so, I mean, I'm kind of going off, but that's what's going through this rocks up here. So.
So my end goal is to have an operational railroad also.
Right.
But I look at some opportunities that we haven't explored as the city council person from Starbucks. His figure said there was 5 million bushel of grain that went through Prescott in 2024. And most of it was road trip down to Scheffler Elevator and then loaded on barges. Well, to me, that's a huge opportunity for our operator to get that grain on rail and get it down to Wallula. And I know there's issues there, but I don't know that we've helped him with those issues with the mainline railroad. Those are opportunities that I see. I see that we could possibly do other things that would generate revenue for him, but also for our county and our communities. In partnerships with our transit, with other means of speeder cars, of tour trains, and all sorts of things that have huge impacts on our local community and our county and our railroad on down the line through Walla. And I don't think we've explored those opportunities with him or without him and my goal is to have operational, but I think that if we put the sale off to the side and look at an RFP or an RFQ to see who wants to operate it and what their ideas are and how they are gonna, and I want Paul to be a part of that process. I don't disagree that he would be the logical choice, but we don't even know if there are other choices out there because we haven't asked the question.
Yeah, and I hear you on that. Respect wise, in my point of view, to me, it would be disrespectful to have someone put that much energy and time to it and then go look for another suitor necessarily, if we can do it with the current operator. Okay,
But I think we have to have a framework to say, this is what we think we should have. Can you meet that? And I don't,
absolutely.
I don't think that he's not able, but does he want to? That's two different things.
Well, yeah, I mean, if the operator says, no, I'm not interested. Okay, I'm not gonna beg for the operator to be interested, then an avenue, but I think first dibs. And a conversation of, okay, what do you need
Yeah.
from us? How can we resource you or better, if we can, if it's an option? I think there's some avenues, just like you talked about.
Yeah.
Maybe there is some conversations that we can have with other people that have decision-making authority to be able to get trains from here to where they need to be. To help that process.
I think a huge partner to all of this could be the Northwest Grain Growers. They have a lot of trains, well, not necessarily, but the car, grain train. Going up on the Columbia all the time. Why wouldn't they be interested in partnering with Paul to get that grain, if it's a viable and economic? You know, they're gonna make that decision too.
The other question I have is, do we want to make a profit on this rail line, the port?
Well, that's what I wanted to talk about as well, is that really where our mission lies, is to get something as cheap as we can and turn it around and sell it for as much as we can and make a profit off, make as much as we can off of our tenants. I don't know, you know, or are we here to try to promote business and make opportunities for them to be able to grow and prosper and put money back into the community through taxes, you know,
The other,
yeah,
part- yeah, the other part of that is, so when I look at it, I'm like, okay, this is not a money-making endeavor
right,
for the port. It is a tread water,
It'd be
maintain
self-sustaining.
it, self-sustaining. But have it where it actually makes money for our stakeholders because the option of rail is cheaper, more viable, or whatever it may be for their business and they make more money. Then that's the economic development part of the whole scheme, right? And same with Paul, or an operator, right? We want to make sure that they are making the money to be able to
Continued on.
continue to operate, to be able to make sure grain growers can make better. The whole thing circles, and we're just kind of, we have it, we have the resource.
Yeah.
And just making sure that resource is available without having to worry about, well, we're not making a profit. Okay, as long as we tread water on it, but the whole system's working. To me, that would be success for operating the railroad as far as that port goes.
Well, it's no different than our industrial sites all along Rock Hill here. To me, they aren't supposed to be profit, but they aren't supposed to lose either.
Yeah, we gotta be good stewardships of the taxpayers.
Yeah, and you have to have some buffer in there for maintenance issues and catastrophes. That the railroad needs also, but we don't have any contingency for the railroad. We get the $4,000 a year, so we aren't set up to help match anything if he is making money. I'm not saying take all of his profit away, that's not what I'm saying.
Mhm.
But we do that all along Rock Hill. We make sure we have a contingency fund, so if an air conditioner goes out or garage door fails, that we can repair it.
Yeah, and with that, absolutely, I hear you on that, but with those businesses. There is not, there is a handful of railroad operators.
Yeah.
And there's lots of people that wanna have little small businesses, so the opportunity, if somebody says, that's too much lease, I'm out. The opportunity to be able to fill that lease is way more viable to try to fill a lease of an operator.
well, you know, you gotta remember, you're gotta find an operator that's only going to be operating 32 miles of line from here to Walla Walla, you know, they're not taking over the entire operations of Columbia Rail, you know, they're taking over from Walla Walla to Dayton, you know, where's the incentive? And how can somebody make money in just that short little section? Just have to transfer again to another carrier to take the rest of the way, you know, so I don't see a lot of incentive to find another operator that is really going to be able to do much with it, because Paul has the business from Walla Walla on, so.
So it makes sense.
You know, it makes sense to keep it in his hands, because he's already got the business and the infrastructure and it's already established, whereas if we try to find somebody new, well, that's gonna take time. It's gonna be however many years till we can find somebody with a little bit of interest. What's happening with the rail in the meantime, you know?
But we've already had two.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we've had 2 inquiries. It's not like there's nobody that's
Right.
interested.
Yeah.
Yeah, cause I'm curious why you think that you see.
Well, there was one inquiry that would be interested in purchasing it if we were to put it up for bid, and another, you said that there was another that was potentially interested in.
Either purchase or operations,
Right,
even if we maintained ownership.
right.
So I'm only saying, I don't think we know unless I don't think we really know. I don't think we really know. I think it's speculation at this point, but
But, you know.
and that is
like John
nothing
was saying,
against Paul. I think
I think we're
absolutely.
devaluing his investment and what he brings to the community if we just start going off and trying to find somebody. Like,
I agree.
Well, but he said he didn't want to renew his lease, so that's what I'm going by.
Yeah, well, I think more conversation after today's meeting. And be able to say, all right, this is where we're at. Now what, right? Cause everything's
You mean
been,
with Paul?
Yeah, everything's been what if for the last 2 or 3 years. What if, or can we do? Okay, let's get to a point where we need to get, we all agree that we don't necessarily need to make a huge profit on it. It's not, I mean, that's gonna rob profit from anybody else. We all agree that we want it the best for the community, long term, when we're not sitting in these chairs and creating a mess, down the road, right? I don't want that to be my legacy, that's for damn sure, type deal, so, but we also don't want it to sit idle, right? So those are,
If we can help.
we agree with those things, is, I would imagine, I don't see anything different on that. I look at it too as a business owner, if I'm looking at it, and I understand where the financial figures came in as far as the offer. How could you offer much more than that and still survive? Being able to pay that much more with the limited operation we currently have.
Right, can you imagine how many years it would take to pay off a $13.2 million?
Or even a portion of that, right? So I get it. I'm like, okay, if I was in it, that makes business sense, even though I'm not in that business logically. I understand the offer. I understand where it's coming from. I also understand that I can't even get close to that, and there's no shame with that, right?
Right.
You look at the conversations and say, all right, now I really think we need to take a look at it and go, okay, does the current operator want to operate?
Yeah.
Now, I don't mean to talk like you're not in the room, Paul, but, anyways, my thing is I want him to operate it. Lots of reasons. One, it's just not, to me, with what he's done, the longevity of it, he's a part of our community. And I do not want to do that to anybody a part of our community if they think that there's a viable option and they want to. Okay, that's where I'm at with it. I don't even want to entertain looking at somebody else until that option is off the table. That's my mind, because I don't think that's the right thing to do.
Are you willing to say that for now, with the current offer, that the sale of the railroads off the table?
Oh, I can't get there. With the legalities, the current offer, the what ifs, the unknowns, even with all the knowns, which created a bunch more unknowns. I can't get there to sell the railroad to anybody at this time for those off things. We're not even close in the same ballpark yet.
Right.
So my vision is like, all right, what's plan B?
Yeah.
Okay,
How do we build the
get
future?
to where we need to go? Because ultimately, that's our number one goal, right?
Mhm.
The goal was not to sell the railroad. The goal was we had an offer and look at the feasibility. Let's get the facts. Because I didn't have them. You didn't have them.
Right.
You didn't have them. Let's get the information. Now that we have the information, to me, that's the power. And now we move forward. That's where I'm at.
Right.
And I can't get to where I'm gonna sell the railroad for those reasons.
Well, I think I can get a little closer than that in my mind to justifying it, but I do question the legality of it and how we can do it legally, because that's important, because we don't want the Fort getting in trouble or doing something we're not supposed to do, you know? I would definitely, like to see the Fort be able to bring in more than that, but I see so much value in retaining Paul as an operator and continuing a seamless transition that keeps traffic flowing on that line. As I see that as having an incredible value for the future of the community.
Would you be open to taking another run at some of the, and I see a bunch of stuff has been done, so I'm not saying anything hasn't been done.
Mhm.
But just because it's been done once, or we've tried once, getting grants, financials, whatever it may be, talking to the other railroad, those type of things, right? Would you be open to be able to say, hey, let's put our energy to that, to get this to where we need to get that number one goal?
To what, Johnny? I didn't quite understand. To do what?
How do we get the rail line from here to there and operate all these cars from grain? we've been, Paul, the current operator struggles for that currently, right?
Oh, you mean to get it to the UP?
Yeah,
To
who
the
we need to
river?
talk to,
Oh, okay,
what
that,
kind
okay,
of,
sorry, I didn't
what kind
understand.
of
what you-
information we need to have for that? How do we get
Who
that
talk
out there?
to?
You know, are there, you know, I'm not a grant happy guy either, because it just doesn't grow on trees. And right now, I mean, I know where the budget is for the state of Washington, and it ain't pretty. And I also know where the budgets are for the federal a little bit, and it ain't pretty. So I don't anticipate,
Huge grants.
a huge gift box sitting at the front door with a bag of money in it. But just keep pushing where it makes sense and where there's opportunity. And if we can get an operator to generate with that, if it truly is, that's the hiccup, that's the choke point of it. How can we get to that not being a choke point?
Well, where's the State Department of Transportation railroad guy sitting down to help
Mhm.
figure out what Paul can do, what we can do? How do we get UP to accept cars on the rail line and get them down the loop?
Another operator's gonna have the same problem.
Yeah.
Like, the problem doesn't go away with changing operators.
So I have a question for you then, Paul, in this email that you had sent to Jenny to send to us in the last paragraph, it says, finally, as info, we have worked out pricing with Union Pacific for CWW to move grain trains into the NW Northwest Grain Growers Wallula facility. And we're currently arranging a car fleet of 28 cars to support those moves out of both Northwest Grain Growers, Oregon and Prescott, Oregon. So are we now able to get there?
We haven't run a first train yet, but we've got pricing bracketed between our target and their demand. They're not that far apart. So I mean, I anticipate moving this fall.
So that's good news.
So that choke, so that choke point, looks like there's some light at the end of the train tunnel. No pun intended.
It involves Union Pacific physically handling the cars at Wallula, and I can't promise how effective, reliable, sustainable that will be.
Mhm.
That wasn't what we wanted. That wasn't what we were supposed to have, but that's what they're cooperating with. So we're gonna give it a try and hope that we can sustain it.
All right.
Well, and maybe with the grain growers, the Northwest grain growers, maybe they can help you put pressure. I mean, the railroad is happy about their grain trains going up and down. They celebrate it and advertise it. Well, grain growers run the Prescott elevator. There's 5 million bushels coming out of there. You would think they'd want an option on shipping it the cheapest route they could. I mean, that's in what they're trying to do.
What would that do if you were able to, if this works in the manner that you have it scoped right now? What would that do for your operations? I mean, I know you don't have a crystal ball, but if you think it's gonna work in the manner that it looks like it's gonna work for that choke point.
To me, if we're moving healthy volumes of grain out of Prescott and Milton Freewater to Wallula, it makes our railroad a lot busier. We aren't necessarily making a huge profit on the move based on the limited transportation value. We're competing with, trucking on a public highway to Shepler, which is, closer than going by rail to Wallula. But the additional activity, the additional carloads, the additional trucks that aren't on the road, that makes it all the more practical to update the railroad as far as grant funding that we're working on as well.
Okay,
In the report on page 7, Paul had said, or Columbia Rail said, Northwest Grain Growers has indicated they have around 1,000 rail cars per year they would put on the rail if CWW could reach the grain facility. That's a lot.
so has that been validated from them?
From who?
Their contact?
From Northwest Grain Growers?
Yeah,
They haven't disputed it, but I guess I haven't verified it. I could do that.
okay, I mean, down the road, I don't know if it. Absolutely down the road, because
That's a lot.
those are stakeholders, right? And then what would that do to the maintenance? The current track would support that elevated level of travel, or would it?
It would, we would have to chase a lot of ongoing repairs to keep up with that tonnage. I mean, the rails are 1898. The support earth is old steam locomotive cinders. I mean, it needs a lot of work.
Mhm.
Now, wall to wall on down is a much healthier construction standard. It doesn't need too much attention, but wall to wall to Prescott would start crying for a lot of work, and we'd follow up with that. I mean, we have that covered in our pricing,
Okay,
but we'd want to update it.
yeah.
Well, could that updating based on the grain help the possibility have personnel? Or not personnel, tourist type trains?
I mean, if the railroad's updated, maybe I don't understand the question.
I mean, upgrading it over a long term, would it get us to a point where we could have passenger rail?
Yeah, I don't know what the market is for ongoing passenger rail. I think in terms of like tour trains or,
Yeah, that's what I'm.
you know, line related, yeah, periodic stuff, sure.
Okay.
So let's talk a little bit about the legal roadblock that we are dealing with. Kim, is there a legal pathway if we were to want to sell this railroad? Or significantly less than the appraisal based on the value that he is, money that he has put into it, taking that into consideration with his investment into it and his ongoing investment, and also what having this operational means to the community is.
So I'm uncomfortable giving you a legal opinion in an open public meeting.
Okay. All right. So that kind of leaves that part in limbo. In regards to the $13+ million appraisal, the part that I have issue with is valuing that land at roughly $32,000 an acre for land that's way out in the middle of nowhere with no services, not usable for residential. Using comps that are from land that we sold in the industrial area here that is adjacent to buildings, you know, and valuing land out in the middle of nowhere where there's no utilities, no roads, no access, no water, no anything. I just can't see that entire 32-mile stretch being worth $32,000 an acre to come up with that figure. There might be a couple small sections of it that are like right in town or right where there's other buildings or utilities or things like that. But I don't think that is a very valid representation of the real estate in our region. And I don't see how it would be possible for any operator ever to be able to in any way make a profit or make any kind of a positive movement as a business with a $13+ million investment into a 32-mile worn out 18-something track. So I don't, that's why I don't necessarily agree with the valuation of $13+ million.
Could I make
The
a
challenge with that is that's the information on paper we have
I know it.
that we paid good money to get. And if that's what puts us in a bit of a jam, a little bit, on the legal side of the house, because it's gonna say, well, this is what they said. Now, if we disagree with it and we want a second opinion, that's more time and more money we're shoveling out down the road to get a second opinion on paper.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, they're not going to care what we think is valuable.
Right.
So, but I hear you. I don't necessarily think that, well, what percentage is it?
Yeah.
10 million, 8 million?
I don't know. That's not my area of expertise, you know, but that's a incredibly incredibly tall figure.
Could I make one clarification though, that the comp sheet that I would put in this report, that was only used by the port when we sold those small pieces. That was, the appraiser didn't use that sheet.
Okay,
They used their own information.
Right.
It was not from that sheet.
okay.
I just want to make sure you knew
All right,
that, yeah.
thank you.
So, and I just wrote myself a note here. When I was going through this, the 448 acres or 448 acres. Times $2,000 an acre is $8 million. So I don't know where you're getting the $32,000 an acre.
I think that's the land, but then you got the tracks and all the other stuff.
No, that's what I'm saying, is just for the land, and
Mhm.
I don't know where you can buy $2,000 acre farmland at this time anywhere within our county or in Multnomah County. $2,000 is $8 million.
The biggest thing is, it's not necessarily it's not next to a ocean front, it's not next to a lake or a pretty river, I guess it is next to a river. So it's not the property value there, it is the corridor.
Right. That will never be
That
able to
is the
replace.
value, from my understanding, of looking at that, it is the corridor, not necessarily the land itself that makes the value.
Okay.
It's not like you're selling 488 acres out here
Out here in the middle of nowhere.
middle of nowhere. It is a
It's a
specific
connected piece.
connection. So that's,
Two decimals off, it'd be 20,000 an acre to get you that figure.
Okay.
yeah,
Still.
yeah.
Yeah, you're 800,000, not 8 million.
Okay.
It's okay.
But then you have the value of the corridor, the value of the tracks, the value of the market, the value of, there's lots of value in there.
And I'm certainly not trying to devalue and say it's, you know, just this worthless, absolutely garbage, not worth anything. But I'm having a hard time seeing at that level, you know, which, you know, obviously Paul is as well, and he's not even anywhere close to that any more than we are close to his number. So that brings us to the point of my legal concerns is, you know, is there a legal pathway that we can sell? You know, if it's not his figure, but if some other offer comes in at some point for this, you know, somebody offered us $7 million, you know, that's a little over half of it, but we're still way under what we
Yeah,
can,
I just,
you know,
I-
so.
yeah, I don't know if there's the value to put the energy into getting, because we're so far. If it was a little bit, it's like, okay, we can work through, we can finagle and
5 or 10%.
make the deal, right?
Mhm.
I just think there's just too much there, to be able to put the energy. And then what's gonna happen is we may miss an opportunity to meet our number one goal, which is to make that thing viable.
Right,
For
And so I don't wanna miss that opportunity in the,
a
in the.
lot
mix of it
more
all.
future than us.
Mhm.
so if we're not able to sell to Paul or come to what we can agree, that would be a number that suits everybody and whatnot, then his lease is up and he moves on, then we have a rail that's not operating, so we've just failed at that.
But he has an obligation to continue service.
And I hear you.
Minimally,
Yeah.
temporarily,
Yeah,
you know.
until we can go out for RFPs.
I hear you, but I will live with that until we get more than making a mistake because we are in a hurry to do something that is not where we need.
And we haven't even sat down with Paul and
So that would be on us
discussed.
because of how it went about.
Right,
We should have some ownership in that and really work hard at Plan B and say, all right, how do we, if there was fences that were kicked down, how do we mend those?
mhm,
And then what do you need to get to the goal? And then what is, you know, what is the operator's goal? On Plan B, and can we meet that as a team? If we can't, then we look out and go a different direction and we keep trugging along to get it done. Yeah, it'll be a setback and I am not looking forward to that if that's the option that comes to us
Mhm.
and that we don't have an option, but
right,
I'm not willing to necessarily, I'm okay with that. More than the other alternative.
right, understand.
Yeah,
So I guess going forward, then we have some choices to make. We could either just close the book on this and say we're just too far apart and we don't want to consider the other offers, or we could continue to entertain the possibility of maybe moving forward with it. And if we were to move forward, we would, as a commission, for one, we would have to meet in executive session to set a minimum price, I believe, would be one of the next steps. You know, that would have to be a price that we would all agree on as commission as the absolute minimums that we would accept. And from there, we would either couple options. We could either enter into direct negotiation with Paul and say, hey, can we get near this or whatever? And see where we go, or we could keep that number to ourselves and put it up for bid, either sealed bid or public auction, and see where the bids come in at. And if they don't match up with our minimum sale price that we've set as a commission, then deal's done and it's off the table. But that would exhaust our options and not necessarily close the door on it at this point, but at least see it to fruition to where we then know if selling it is at all viable or not.
Well, I think the door's always cracked open with the information, and I know it gets down the road, so it's never fully shut, right?
But
If it comes about, but the energy and the time where we're at right now is what I'm looking at, and my gut says we put this on the shelf and we go to Plan B and say, let's get this thing, let's get rid of all this other stuff that has taken the focus out of getting to our number one goal.
Operation.
And go from there. We will have the report, we have that information. If down the road, more is gonna say, hey, we can get there, or some, or we continue to have, but putting a lot of energy into it, I'm not there.
and
I think we're limited on, we're already limited, and it's frustrating. I wish we could have had this meeting here.
yeah,
Honestly,
this has been a
because
long.
this is how I like to do
process.
business, to be able to have conversations. And we can't get together and have conversations, which is frustrating, in my world, because that's how I make deals in business, right?
Right.
And you just can't, because the rules of engagement. But I also don't want to kick this can down the road, because we still have some, opportunities to either succeed or fail on our number one goal. And so right now I'm like, I want to shelf it.
Okay.
And I want to say, all right, Paul, are you in? And if you're in, what do you need from us? How do we make this, suitable, economic development, stakeholders, and we hit and put the energy towards that.
Okay. Well,
And we can't make a decision at this meeting.
well, no, I mean,
But I agree.
That's where I'm-
100% with you. That we need to put our efforts on seeing how we maintain it as operational. And how we move forward in our next meeting on the 9th. Hopefully we can have that as an agenda item.
Yeah, and I'm not looking for an alternative operator at this point.
Okay.
In my mind,
well, we've got one till December.
he's earned the opportunity. Unless he doesn't want it, and then we go into Plan C.
I'm good with that.
I don't necessarily agree with all of that from you gentlemen, but I will respect your opinions and where you're coming from. I truly believe the best avenue for operation and future longevity of that line is in private ownership, and I think that Paul could do the best job of it because he's got the experience and he's already doing.
Are you working?
But that said, I'm only one and you guys are two, so that's okay. And while this isn't any decision making or a vote of any kind, if we want to table, if we decide as a commission, we want to table this for now, we can absolutely do that and revisit it at a future date if situations and finances and things change. But if we can't come to an agreement of which path we want to go forward, then we'll have to put it on hold for now.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
I do really appreciate everything that Paul has brought to our community and all the hard work he's put into it. I am disappointed in us as a port and the way that we have responded to him in a lot of situations. I feel like that he is almost thought of as a little bit less than because he gets such a great deal on his lease, but that's, just kind of going tandem on what you were mentioning earlier that, for somebody that brings so much to the community, me personally, I really appreciate you, Paul, and everything that you've done, and I hope that as a commission, as a port, that we can continue to work with you and find a common ground that we can all agree on and move things forward for this community, because that's what it's about, is doing what's best for this community, and so.
Yeah, and I do that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for bearing with us, and I agree. We own the canned chicken. Not saying there's any reason for it. It just sometimes bureaucracy, that's the way it happens. Like I said, man, I appreciate what you're doing. I hope you continue. And I hope we can, even go further, with what we're doing here. So that's my wish.
I would like to see us make sure we write down what our goals, I think we've set them out, but
Mhm.
you think you captured what? Have it operational, able.
Yep. I think
And
so, yep.
negotiate with our current operator, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, you have not made a formal decision
We,
to not go out for RFP,
We-
but
yeah.
I get the gist of the conversation that what you're,
I just
that
wanna
I need
make
to talk to
sure-
Paul.
that we're all clear what we're headed for, so that we can get it on our agenda and actually move on it instead of
Yeah, and we're not making any movements until after our meeting next week.
we can't.
And that is not very far away, so just remember that. But yeah, we can, and I would like, just ask you in the meantime, just think about your bigger vision. I mean, passenger train, tourism activities, those things have been brought up. If that is something that truly interests you, think about it, and then it gives me a better understanding of what I will be negotiating with the operator.
Yeah, okay,
If you are, if you're not, that's important.
yeah,
Does that sound
Yeah.
fair?
yep.
You want emails, or you wanna wait till next meeting? Further our
Yeah,
thoughts?
you can, let's wait till next meeting
Okay.
and you can
Okay,
say, cause we're supposed to
do it in.
tell the public what we're thinking, so you guys can
All right,
give thoughts on, if you have any different vision or if you like it just the way it is. So, yeah, does that make sense?
Makes sense.
That's your role, set the goals.
Also, thank you to everybody here, and on Zoom, even though I don't know if they have a lot of option not to spout off, because they might be on mute, but thank you for not just throwing hand grenades into our meeting. Appreciate that. That was very respectful.
Anything else to add?
I'm thinking.
All right. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now